There's a running joke in my family that I'm scared of everything. It's not entirely wrong. I am scared of a lot of things. I'm scared of spiders, candles, fireworks, public speaking, and my cat. Almost anything you can name, I can find a way to be afraid of. Windows? What if they shatter? Pencils? What if I get poked? Cotton candy? Yeah, sounds like a pretty good way to get 18,000 cavities and permanently ruin my teeth. But for a really long time, I was scared of walking my dog. It came down to two main reasons. One, I was scared of being alone in my neighborhood, despite how generally quiet and safe it is. I mean, what's not to be scared of being alone? We're vulnerable, and who's gonna help you if no one's around? Two, I was scared of the dark. Babies are not scared of the dark, but we become scared of the dark when we're very young, around the time that we're 3 or 4, when we get more conscious of our surroundings and what might be in them. Scary things can hide in the dark, like spiders and people. People can be scary. I saw something once that said you're not scared of being alone in the dark, you're scared of not being alone in the dark. I was only ever comfortable walking my dog, Lolo, with another family member. But this came to a head when my dad decided that I was going to start walking my dog in the evenings. I resisted. The first day I told my dad that I walked the dog, but I actually didn't. It wasn't that I didn't want to give Lolo a walk, I just didn't want to do it alone, and definitely not after the sun went down. But I felt really bad for Lolo, and only a little bad for lying. It was enough that I figured I'd better follow through. So, the next day, I grit my teeth, put her leash on, and walked around the cul-de-sac, which does not count as a proper walk, turned around, and called it a day. I think I got away with this for less than a week, after which I actually started feeling worse for Lolo, and decided that she deserved to walk a bit more. Progress was slow. 1 block turned into 2 blocks, and 2 blocks turned into 3. After a little while, we established the P. The P is the optimal walking path. You walk down a few blocks from my house, take a right, go up a block, turn right again, and go back until you get home, thus creating a P shape. Lolo and I quickly fell into a routine that we carried out for months. It was summer, and the sun didn't set early. I was okay with the being alone part. Besides, I wasn't really alone. I had Lolo, and we started to meet other dogs in the neighborhood out on their evening walks. I felt pretty good, and I enjoyed the walks a lot. So there's this thing called seasons. I had started my dog walking duties in mid-spring, which allowed me lots of time to walk Lolo after school, just after the sun gave us a break and temperatures dropped down to a cool 83 degrees. But as months passed, it got darker earlier and earlier, and I had less daylight to walk. My once leisurely evening strolls became a race against the setting sun. One particular day, I lost this race. I was pretty grumpy, the typical middle school blues. I probably had lots of homework I didn't want to do. I think Lola was in a similar headspace. It never occurred to me that she would get bored of the P, but on that day, she did. Instead of readily turning to the right as we went down the hill, Lolo decided she wanted to take a left. Again, I resisted. The sun was already fairly low, and I really wanted to get home, and turning left was not part of the routine. We go in a P, not a Q. Didn't Lolo get that? Lolo wasn't having it. After a few minutes of back and forth, me grumbling, yelling, "Come on, Lolo," and pulling on her leash, I finally gave in. We turned left. It was strange. I'm very attached to my routines, and changing it felt like doing something wrong. We walked maybe a block. The sun disappeared over the horizon and the street lights flickered on. I didn't notice how dark it had gone until I got a call on my phone. It was my dad asking where I was. It was so insanely out of character for me to be out after the sun went down, my family had to call to make sure I hadn't been abducted by aliens. When I got home, I realized, once I actually let Lolo lead the way and I turned left, I wasn't so afraid. I would also like to note that Lolo isn't a large dog. She's maybe 30 pounds of pure sweet and stubborn, but that day she shook me out of my mood. I think she knew that I was stuck in my routine, and while routine isn't inherently a bad thing, it was time to change it up. Life is all about change. If you stick to one routine, how are you going to change and grow? You know, like when you're blowing up a balloon and at first it's easy to blow and it swells up really big, but if you want to be big, there's that really hard push at the end. I think that's where I'd gotten stuck. I'd gotten comfortable walking the loop alone, but I wasn't ready for the dark and I wasn't ready for change. Lolo knew it and she shook me out of it. Sometimes it takes a pretty simple push to overcome something. Despite the fact that I had the leash, that day it was my dog, taking control and helping me out. Lolo achieved two things that night. She helped me stop being so afraid of the dark, and she helped me get out of my own head. It wasn't a huge, life-changing moment, but it was just as important. These mundane fears of mine are just that, mundane. Even so, they feel huge in the moment. We face these small, everyday moments of being afraid so often. It can be easy to avoid the small fears. The small fears can feel so insignificant that we don't even bother dealing with them. We're much more inclined to worry about the big, life-altering issues that will affect our future. But it's also okay to take care of you, here in the now. The little things can pile up. It's not the anvil that breaks the camel's back, it's the straw. I'm admittedly still learning how to do this, but it helps to look back and see growth. Facing any kind of fear is an accomplishment. These days, if I see a spider on my shirt in bed at night and jump up and flail around and flee my room, though we no longer know the whereabouts of the spider, I can actually return to the room, sometimes without calling my Nana at 1:30 in the morning. See? Progress. I can also walk the dog at night, in a P or Q, maybe even a G. Today, I don't bat an eye when Lolo takes charge or when we're out and the street lamps light up. So, I think it's safe to say that I'm not scared of everything,